I guess Lindsay here with Storybook Family Farm. So I think we've all had that elusive dream of hoping that one day our homestead could be on a big sprawling amount of acreage, of having, 10, 20, 30, even a couple hundreds of acres of land and stuff. But for most of us, like myself included, that's not a reality. When I started homesteading, I actually lived right smack dab in the middle of a small town. We were like one of the main roads, actually. And we only had a little bit over a quarter of an acre of land. So my starting point with homesteading really was on a very small footprint. And it caused me to learn a lot of different things, all while evaluating what our dream was, what our goal was, and what our hopes were for our homestead moving forward, because we knew that we didn't want to stay in town for forever, mainly because I really wanted to have goats, and we weren't supposed to have chickens, but we hid them in our garage. We weren't supposed to have meat rabbits, but we also hid them in our garage. So I wanted to, first and foremost, make it so that way our animals could have a very natural life outside. But I also really, really had a big affinity for goats and wanted to get goats. My whole life, I always wanted goats. So that was the big reason as to what pushed us to not staying in town. Because honestly, for us, we wanted to create our homestead to be as self-sufficient as possible, to make it so that way we could grow as much food as possible within, reason and stuff. Like, I bake bread for a living. I was not about to ever be like, I want to make all the wheat that I'm going to ever need to bake bread to sell at farmers markets. That was never in the cards. That was never our goal, never our hope. We had talked about maybe one day having enough acreage that we could raise our own animal feed, and make our own hay. But as time went on and we got further down this path, we realized that really takes up so much energy and so much time that I'd much rather devote to doing other things. So, spider web. As reality started setting in, and we are not a very rich, lucrative family. We're kind of right at that poverty line and stuff, and 2020 kind of made the housing market go bananas. So things shifted, things changed. In between living at that small plot of land in town and buying the property we have now that has 2 acres on it, for almost a year we lived on family property that had 28 acres that we could roam around, that we could sprawl out, that we could basically experiment with, which was a huge blessing. But some of the things that we learned from there was that having a lot of acres makes it so there's a lot more work, more things to manage, even just to do regular upkeep of mowing the grass. It takes a long time, and grass grows at the same time that your garden grows. So it's like, do you want to spend time growing and preserving your own food or mowing the grass every week? Because for me personally, I'd much rather spend it in the air conditioning canning my harvest instead of sweating to death outside during a heat wave. That's just me. Some of the other big perks that I found to having a smaller plot of land, especially now that we're on our own 2 acres, we've been here for over a year, so we've kind of gotten into a bit of a groove, a bit of a flow, so to speak. It becomes really nice because, like, right now we are in a bit of a drought. I can take the time to actually intensively water everything that we have. I can, super intensively plant stuff and really observe and be able to be very attentive and manage and even micromanage things on our property and get to watch and learn. Whereas if we had a larger scale property, it'd be very hard to do those things. The other thing is, you kind of realize when you start out very small how much space is actually needed for homesteading, and it's not as much as most people think. When we lived in town, I was actually growing about 75% of our family's vegetables for the entire year. Half of our yard was in full shade. There also was a detached garage, so that took up yard space. We had a 2-car width driveway, so that also takes up yard space. So it was not the perfect situation. It wasn't like a bare blank canvas of that we had, a quarter of an acre that was perfectly suitable for growing. We only grew, I think our garden was, including the flower beds, was like 1,600 or 1,700 square feet. And in that amount of space, we were able to grow that much food. And as years go on, your soil gets better, your quality gets better, your skill sets get better. If you save your own seeds, they become genetically adapted to the exact growing condition of your own homestead or your neighborhood or whatnot. So it makes it so basically each year that you do this, you get better at it and you're able to produce a lot more in the same amount of space. So in all reality, we don't need a huge garden. So you might say, well, why do you need this much land? And why do you also sometimes talk about wanting to have more land? The reason for that is not homestead related at all whatsoever. The desire to have more land is because I want to create essentially like a sanctuary type of a space for wildlife. Totally not homestead related. Despite the fact that I do hunt, I don't want it just to be a hunting type property. So, with saying that, the amount of space that we actually are utilizing to actually homestead on at this property is only about 3/4 of an acre of land. That also includes where our house is, our driveway is, there's a little shed, our barn, and it also includes our septic area and leach bed that's kind of like a no-go zone where you can't really do much of anything there. In that space, we are raising approximately 130 animals. That is a ton. So we are fully self-sufficient for all of our dairy, which is really nice because the Nigerian dwarf goats are cute as all get out. And they're really fun to watch and to play with and stuff, but they're also very manageable for a woman to be able to do stuff. They're very friendly and handleable for a child. Most of them are pretty much the size of a large dog, so it's really not that hard. And they give you a ton of milk. And honestly, you don't need as much as you think you might. Like, it's really exciting to read about different cows and things of that nature that can produce gallons upon gallons a day. But honestly, unless if you have a huge family, you're going to be drowning in milk if you get a cow. That's the skinny of it. Right now, we have one goat that is getting milked every day, and she's providing over a quart of milk a day. And we're kind of like scrambling because we're like, oh my God, this is so much milk. Like, it's a lot of milk for just the two of us to be drinking and stuff. And I have dabbled into cheese making, and I have more things I'm going to do. But what I'm saying is when you're reading all this stuff and all the literature, it's really easy to get excited about having a massive amount of land. But in reality, you don't need it at all. And I tell myself the same thing also because honestly, I'm somebody that struggles with impulse control. I want to do all the things, have all the animals, have all the varieties of fruit trees, but I never stop and think, okay, well, at some point I'm going to have to process all of this. I'm going to have to learn how to make all the cheeses. I'm going to have to learn how to do the things, and that takes more time. It takes more energy, which brings me to the next thing. Having a smaller homestead makes it so that way you can be much more efficient in your design and your energy, your time, and how you manage the animals. If your desire is to have a big operation to where you're selling at farmers markets or to restaurants or whatever, you're going to need more space for animals. You're going to raise way more animals than just the average homesteader because that kind of branches you into being a farmsteader or just having a farm or whatever terms you like. With raising for just your family, after a while, you realize that you've created so much abundance in just a small footprint that you cannot ever use all of it. We make all of our own dog food because we are really good at creating abundance and not really good at marketing it. So we end up using a lot of our rabbit meat to add in towards dog food and to do different things for dog food because as things go freezer burnt in the freezer because we can't eat it fast enough, then it goes to dog food. It's a very, very easy way to do it. The other thing that I really like about homesteading on a small scale is that it allows you to become more creative. You have to look at your property because you don't have 10, 20 acres to sprawl out at, to play around with and stuff. You have to really focus on your microclimates and what is going to do well where. So for those things, I really enjoy deep diving into the wild area of our property to watch and look at how close everything is growing together and what the soil is like and how the leaves naturally fall down and they create a mulch. And I try to mimic that everywhere that I'm growing food on the rest of the property. Just so in that way, it's a maximally efficient property. We can grow the maximum amount of food. We can do the maximum amount of things without having to walk all over God's green earth to do those things. Because when you're on a larger piece of property, you spend a ton of time walking. So for me, I actually have a genetic condition that makes it so my joints aren't as in good a shape as the average person, and they fall apart a lot faster. I deal with a lot of chronic pain, a lot of different things. So even though I'm only in my early 30s, it's more as though I'm in my 50s in terms of farm design, layout, and plotting and planning things. So being on a smaller set of acreage makes it nice because of the fact that I am not wasting all of my energy walking from the house to the barn and back and forth and back and forth. I don't have my garden far away from the house, so in that way it's more efficient with my time and my energy. Because honestly, if I wasted all of my time and energy walking back and forth, I'm not going to have anything left to harvest the garden, to do the different things. Because when we were living on family property that had 28 acres, that's what happened pretty much every single day, because we couldn't have the garden close to where our camper was parked at. We couldn't have things set up in an efficient way because, well, it wasn't our land. We were just basically sitting there waiting for us to find something. It showed me that on a larger scale property, you spend more time and energy going from here to there than you actually do being there wherever you're going. It takes up so much time and so much effort. Whereas when it's really small, it's not that inconvenient when it's really super hot out like it is today to just scurry out to the garden, scurry out to the barn, check on everybody, walk around, and that sort of a thing, which also makes it really nice for in the wintertime when it's super duper cold out because you're not running everywhere. The other thing too is you don't need as much as you think you do. If you focus on companion planting and growing things vertically, anything that you grow, you are going to be able to make it so you have so much abundance that you're going to not know what to do with it. You're going to be giving things away. You're going to be giving produce away, meat away, different things. The other nice thing too is when you're on a smaller set of land, you're less likely to impulse buy extra animals. As someone that struggles with impulse control, we want to do all of the things. I want to have every animal. I want to do all the things, except for cows. They're too big. They're dangerous. But I've always struggled with that, of wanting to experiment and experience everything that the planet has to offer and stuff. But with having a smaller plot of land, it really helps rein you in so that way you don't buy 200 different varieties of apple trees. My desire would be, let's try every single one because I want to taste every single apple. The next thing you know, I'd have an orchard that I wouldn't know what to do with. I wouldn't have the time to deal with it because of all the animals that we are raising. So it's kind of one of those things of, how good are you at reining yourself in? How much wild space do you require? Because for me, I would actually like it to be that we had more woods, just so that way for wildlife it's like a sanctuary, and that I have a very zen, peaceful place that I can go, that I don't hear the goats screaming because it's almost supper time. I don't hear the roosters crowing to tell the hens that they found a treat or anything of the sort like that. I think that'd be really nice, but that's just me. But the reality of it is if we stayed here for the rest of our lives on 2 acres, we would be able to grow enough food to probably feed 5 families at least. And our conditions are not ideal growing conditions because, like I said, about half of our property is completely wooded. It's very steep, very shady. You can't grow annual crops here. Like you're not going to plant tomatoes back in the woods. You're not going to do it. You can't put high tunnels or greenhouses or do any of those sorts of things back in here. So it's essentially as though we only have an acre of land. So those are my thoughts on why I actually enjoy homesteading on a smaller plot of land. And basically it's to rein me in. If you guys are wondering what all animals we have besides, I mentioned the goats, I mentioned chickens. We also, on this property, we raise turkeys, we raise ducks, geese, and rabbits. Those are what we have. And then we also have cats and dogs inside of the house too. So we have a lot of different animal species going on and a lot of just different things going on besides, also having a garden and stuff. So if you guys are enjoying this content, please give this video a thumbs up. Share it with your friends on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to help us grow. We'd greatly appreciate it. Let me know in the comment section how much land you guys have and what you think is the perfect amount of land to homestead on, or what you're dreaming of having. And if you have questions as to what all you could do on, say, 2 acres or 1 acre of land, or even in a small, like in-town setting of land, I'd be happy to answer them in the comment section. So thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.